I think what is really important also is co-creation, because co-creation allows us to have an easier time getting policymakers on board because they will be part of it.
I think that kind of early investment in identifying what policy priorities are and beginning that kind of co-generative piece right there could be really important. And I think that that's a bit that's very unfunded right now.
For the training sessions, especially what we have observed in Tanzania, is that they allow for government officials to start to build trust with the individuals in the lab. They allow the government officials to engage. The individuals in the training have already kind of built trust, not only in the science, but in the individuals that they want to work with.
The need for evidence synthesis and perhaps a class of people who specialize in actually spotting opportunities and making available the world of scholarship in a way that is digestible, readily available, to hold hands, to engage in a longer partnership, so that much of these learnings are available and useful as policy gets made, it gets implemented, and that insight. So maybe we should look at a class of professionals who are actually not the people who do research, but the people who sit between the consumers of this and the producers of this.
All of these partnerships that Abeba pointed to, which exist, are signs that change is possible, and that change is possible in a range of funding institutions. There's an opportunity for funders and implementers to come together around the practical constraints of a given funding institution and what can be done within that. So, for example, I have seen colleagues at Gates really lean into how can they take a sector-specific pot of money where within that the Gates Foundation has already set some priorities, like women's economic empowerment in certain spheres, and support longer-term work, such as what Gates has done in Kenya, to particular research centers advancing that agenda.
Indonesia, where we built a long-term partnership with TN2PK, which is the agency in the Vice President's office. We have spent almost 2 decades working with them, evaluating their conditional cash transfer program called Generasi, their ration card program, and built a level of trust where, when they are thinking of new program design, JPAL gets called in and say, what's the evidence from this around the world? And if there is evidence that already exists, we don't even get into a new evaluation. We are like saying, here's the evidence, let's just do it, or just pilot this. In other cases, we design evaluations for them which not only have a long-term component, but a short-term and a medium-term component. For instance, in the case of ration cards, we were able to get back to them in literally a matter of 4 months and say what should be the ideal design of the ration card information.
One thing I'll just mention that I'm excited about as a potential pilot underway in real time as the Evidence-Based Policymaking Act is being implemented in the government is the movement right now for federal agencies and policymakers to publicly share their highest priority research and evaluation questions, and to make sure that those are very directly connected with strategic management priorities of agencies. And I think it'll be really interesting to see in the coming years what happens when we put forward a public research agenda. How does that change the way that we work together? How does that spur new work? How does that spur new investment? And what comes of it? Hopefully some of the questions agencies put forward, academics will say, it's been asked and answered, here you go, you actually don't need to commission lots of new work. And of course, other ones are going to be novel and thorny and hopefully lead to new collaborations.
Where we've had the most promise, I would say, is where we've been able to help government partners set up kind of evidence working groups. They call them different things in different places, where they'll basically bring together local academics. There's an opportunity for them to engage international researchers and implementers. They look at what is let's say it's the education strategy. Let's look at the education strategy and understand what are the questions that they want to answer in order to be able to implement or improve on that strategy. Then it also provides a really important coordination vehicle, because it can allow then funders to recognize okay, this is, how the government is articulating its priorities and its research priorities, and then also how they can coordinate amongst different research initiatives that may be going on.
I think SIGA had a very long-term view about the need to build capacity within the research network in the continent, but also to kind of change the conference infrastructure, the research infrastructure away from just everything being in North America or Europe, but also to start being hosted in the continent.
In our second Morocco Compact, there's an actual program in the Compact that's focused on capacity building for impact evaluations for Moroccan policymakers. So now it's actually about kind of putting that in the hands of those policymakers, and I think that's also kind of a next frontier of the country ownership and capacity building. But it's not just hoping or assuming it will happen, but it's actually investing in it as kind of an outcome of our second compact there.